But if you don't, my name is Nico Salgado. The company that I started is called Small Acts Communities. And what Small Acts Communities is supposed to be tailored towards is getting people together,
You can't see.
form communities, of people that are going to be able to partner with each other, that are going to be able to communicate, network with each other, and just share the same vision and the same, mindset towards building multifamily real estate, investments together. So the whole theory is, and the whole idea is to just really build a network of people that are like-minded and that would like to, work together if possible. And if not, at least just make connections with people. So that's the goal. And I've been running this. This is only my second meeting, but we've had one meetup so far in Long Beach, New York, where I live. And we obviously can't do that anymore due to the circumstances. And now we're going to be doing online, which I think is a huge benefit because we can reach a lot more people. A little bit, I guess, quickly about me, I can talk a little bit about my story and my journey. So I've been teaching Spanish with Barbara over there for the past 16 years. And it's not that I don't enjoy it. I do enjoy it, but I'm certainly getting burnt out. And I found myself picking up a million jobs here and there. I coach a few sports during the year. I tutor, I mentor teachers. I take classes at night to get a higher pay scale. I own and run a wood shop, a small business. I also developed and started a fitness and meditation club for the kids in the morning. So it's like teaching, and I teach in this, and I work in the summer also at a surf camp teaching. So it's like, it's not the ideal job where it's, 8 to 3. In reality, I get to work at 6 a.m., sometimes even earlier, and then I don't get home till 7 or 8 a lot of nights, and then I have to work at home. So I was feeling the effects of just working too much. On top of that, after looking at, my pay scale and what I would be earning for the rest of my career, it's blatantly laid out for you as a teacher, I was not happy with that. So, this happened really back in 2012. I started looking into real estate, and I got into some things. Like I bought a piece of land and I developed a small single family house as a vacation rental, which obviously is not doing well right now for the Airbnb. But I did find value in it. And also when my house got destroyed by Hurricane Sandy, I also learned, after rebuilding that, I learned the value of forced depreciation, because we added some things to our house and made a really, really nice house out of it and increased the value by 50%. So just little things here and there are what got me really, really interested in real estate as a vehicle for investing. Aside from working, because, I'm going to be working for a while also, but the value that real estate offers is really just, I think, not comparable to any other asset class. And then back in November, I got linked up with, the Wheelbarrow Profits Academy, and I was fortunate enough to join them early enough to where I can learn and grow before this whole, COVID-19 thing happened. And I did online courses. I have coaches that have been, instructing me and taking me along the way, and really just expanding my knowledge and my growth in this whole investing environment and multifamily environment. And my focus right now is strictly multifamily, in the sense of we're talking about 5 units or more in the commercial multifamily space, where I'm particularly looking more at 20 plus units, and then looking down in the Tampa area. And there's a lot of different, markets in the United States that are excellent, but I chose my market specifically for certain reasons that benefit me and my family, because we can travel down there and have family down there. That being said, there's a million things we can talk about, but I want to keep it simple tonight for some people and also provide value for other people. So we'll talk a little bit about, what multifamily is, why multifamily over other asset classes. And maybe we'll even talk about like what's going on in the market today and how it'll affect future purchases. But before I go on, I would like to introduce my main man, Mr. Mike Taravella, who works at Rand Capital. And I guess you can give yourself the intro, but he's an awesome asset manager, awesome coach, etc. So Mikey T.
Yeah, so hey everyone, for those who don't know, I'm Mike Taravella. I work with the Rand Partners Group at the investing arm for the Wheelbarrow Profits piece. I originally was, before 5 years ago, I did the CPA track. I grew up in Michigan. I'm originally from Sterling Heights, which is 30 minutes north of Detroit. Just did a lot of work I did accounting. So growing up in Detroit, either worked in automotive or I was a big teacher. So there was no middle ground with my family. So like Nico, I saw how hard my mom worked and my grandma worked, and I was like, they don't make enough. And then I just saw the engineering piece. I was like, I just want to do my own business thing. So my mom's like, do accounting. That's numbers, business. You're good at it. You'll figure it out. And so I did good at it in high school. I was like, okay, that's easy. So then I did the path, did undergrad, did my master's at Michigan State, and then just kind of fell down the rabbit hole. I think that's why we're looking in real estate, is because we're like, just the next thing. So I got my CPA license. I worked for Ernst & Young for 2 years. It wasn't for me. I learned a lot of like the financial. I was an auditor, and no one likes auditors, and no one likes being told how to do their job. So it was just constantly just going through and studying the financial statements and figuring out what ways they can improve. Then I worked for 2 years across the street in Detroit with Dan Gilbert, the owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers and Quicken Loans, where literally I was the right-hand person to help start a couple of his organizations. So launching an esports organization called 100 Thieves, a media production company. And about pretty much was like anywhere from CFO to controller role for another 12 to 14 tech startups, you name anywhere in between. So it was really making sure and helping people understand their numbers and what they mean, but also helping them biz dev their business. But more importantly in that role, I just saw what Dan Gilbert was doing in real estate, and it was like, wow, that's how you get true wealth. So I did a brief stint working with a developer before I got the call to join Jake Stenziano, Gino Barbaro, and be their asset manager there. So taking the numbers, it took me 5 years to not be, I wasn't happy being an accountant. It took me 5 years to realize I'm an extrovert who likes numbers and people. So it's just figuring out what I can do to help better the real estate arm. So with RAM Partners, we have 1,650 or 1,600 units throughout the Southeast. We're headquartered in Knoxville, where we have 900 units, and then we have 700 more units in Lexington and Louisville, Kentucky. And so we're looking to continue to expand. We have about over 100 active investors. And I think the biggest piece was that, I had 2 single family rentals in between. But like to Nico's point, it's another job. It's another piece. So like why multifamily it's that scalability of, instead of having to underwrite one unit 100 times, I'd rather underwrite one unit or one complex once for 100 units. So the scale piece, the tax benefits, it's the depreciation, the cost segregation, it's so much economies of scale of having people run the business instead of everyone working hard enough and then having to manage one unit, another unit, another unit, another unit. So then you got 5 more jobs instead of that true lifestyle piece. So it's been an interesting ride. I think I've been a part of the team for the past year, and was a part of an acquisition in Lexington and just managing and help build those business processes to help just build the machine. That's how we always preach. We build the machine to make it better so that we're not in it as much, we're working on it. So that's kind of just the pieces I have of like my background, what I do. So yeah.
All right, excellent. Hey, Mikey, let's rock some questions, because
Yeah.
I see a lot of people in here already know a lot. There's a few that don't, and also, guys, if you don't, or if you have a question, please just type it into the question box, and we'll get you, on that. But we're just going to start talking. So,
Yeah.
Hey, Mikey, let's say when we're talking about multifamily, for me, in my mind, a duplex is not multifamily, although, there's more than one family in it. I'm talking about 20, 30, 40, 100 plus units, right?
Yeah. So I consider, so in Chicago, anything more than one is a multifamily, but I'm the traditional, if it's more than 5 or more, because that's when you need those commercial loans. So anything 4 and under, you can get those residential loans, which is a lot harder, because they're underwriting the person, not the business plan behind it. So anything 5 or more, I consider the multifamily piece.
Right. Awesome. Now, let's crush some of the limiting beliefs, because a lot of people might say, okay, well, that, 5+ units, now we're talking about millions of dollars potentially, and only rich people can get into that. How would you address that?
Yeah. So, there's 1,000 different ways. I was an accountant trying to figure it out. I've done, I got coaching as well, except it wasn't through a different path. But I just had the limiting belief of I'm only good at numbers. I'm only an accountant. I can only do this. I can't exceed that. And the biggest thing is to get started is add value. You don't have to have the knowledge. You can dedicate the time, whether it's helping other people underwrite, talk to sellers. I think, as an accountant, you never call people on these unless something's really wrong. I've literally been reading Fanatical Prospecting and Pitch Anything. And between those two books, you're kind of just like running through a wall. Let's call brokers. Let's call investors. Whatever we need to do, we're always talking. So it's, I've had it all. I didn't think, making the leap from the Midwest for my family, if I had people tell me, hey, we'll see you in 6 months. And I'm happy to say, being in Knoxville and working with the Rand fam, it's been a great opportunity that I love, that I never regret. And it'll be a year in like a month and a half. So.
Excellent, man. Excellent. So, but let's say I was just a standard average guy and I, was thinking that it was going to be a really good idea to get into real estate, and I was considering buying maybe a single family to get started. Would you think that's a good idea, bad idea, or decent idea? What would you think?
So I think C.S. Clement had a question, kind of like how to get started. So his question is just starting out and somewhat scared to venture into the business. Is it a good idea to get a loan from a private lender to purchase multifamily? If I don't, CS, you can unmute yourself. But starting off, you gotta it took me a year just to understand the rhythms and like what to look at. So I wouldn't be worrying about the finance piece right now. It just kind of, if you're just starting off, educate yourself. Wheelbarrow Profits, there's a ton of good books there. Joe Farrell is his best ever syndication book. I read that book in a weekend because legitimately I knew anything I was doing was not going to be as valuable as reading that entire. It's an encyclopedia for those who don't know, and it's pretty thick, like that thick, of step 1 to step 100 of mindset to closing a deal and selling it. So it's a phenomenal book. So I invest in education. The private lender piece, in multifamily, it's a team sport. You can't do everything. It's impossible to do it all. So you're going to have to get people who have the money, might have the experience, the management experience. So it's going to take a full team sport that you'll have the dream team around you, that financing won't be an issue for you going forward.
Right. Let me just piggyback on that for that question. It depends on the situation. It's going to depend on a lot of things: the size of the property, the loan type. The loan terms. The interest rate, et cetera. So it could be a good deal. It could not be a good deal. It depends. It really totally depends on the specific situation.
Especially now with the Corona piece, there's now 12 months of reserves you need to have, and whether it's principal, interest, or taxes, it's a wild card right now, and things change every 4 to 8 hours, it feels like.
Right, Mike. Somebody was mentioning yesterday that if you wanted to, that only if it was 6 million and above, they were going to be asking for the 12 months of interest and principal and interest only. But that also had changed from a few days ago, so I'm not sure.
That's why I have my buddy Will, Rand Capital's Will Coleman on our team. I call him pretty much every day, like, "Hey man, what's going on?" And he goes, "Well, the answer, it depends, is so true in the space of whether you're looking at a 5 unit, 100 unit, 20 unit. It all depends, and it changes every 4 hours. Even I think, for the small business owners and the PPP, filing that was every day. Change, and just going through it all. We just had ours successfully hit our bank accounts today for our property management company, and that's where our payroll runs through. So if anyone has questions on too on how that works, or what how do they file and everything, happy to either connect on here or offline on your situation and whatever help you need.
Oh, great question, Travis.
Where does the real money come from? So, Travis, where's the appreciation, debt service, or cash flow? So, I had a phenomenal podcast, which we do. It comes out every Wednesday. and its value. So for those who don't know, the valuation of a multifamily property is net operating income, so how much money that property makes, divided by the cap rate, which is market specific, where it compares asset class and location. It's generally set by the market. And so the case study he did was, our guest did, was if you increase the dollar of the NOI by $1 for 12 months, it's $12 of cash flow. However, in those low cap markets, so we'll say a 5% cap rate, your property value goes up $240 because it's the 12 divided by the 5%. And 5% is like a pretty low cap rate given the space. So you're looking at your Charlotte, North Carolinas, Raleigh, Atlanta's, etc. So that's $240. But in your higher cap rate markets, those are your cash flow markets. That if you increased it the $12 at a 10, your value went up only $120. So it is a mixture of both, but the big piece of valuation, and we had a podcast with Bill Ham, who's been in the industry for 15 years. He goes, "What's your cash flow on like a single unit family?" I was like, a couple $100. He goes, "Well, how much has your property values gone up in 5 years?" And that's where it's like, bingo, the appreciation piece. That's why location. So there is the cash flow investing piece. I mean, obviously we're not looking to hemorrhage money to one day to hit it big, but it's a mixture of getting that cash flow, but also having that value piece of picking the right markets to make sure that it's going through.
That's right. A lot of, some people have different strategies. Some people really invest just for cash flow, and in that sense that they're going to be looking at the higher cap rate areas, whereas other people are really more investing for appreciation or just investing to place their money somewhere, and the cap rate isn't really a factor here. Well, James, what is the main thing for you to determine if a deal is worth moving forward on? Cap rate, cash on cash, DSCR, or a combo of it all? Mr. Mike.
So it's a loaded question. So at a very minimum, we're looking at internal rate of return and cash on cash. So internal rate of return is the cash on cash piece, but like it adds a time value of it. So if I say I'm going to double your money and you're like, wow, that sounds great, but I'm going to tell you it's 30 years. Like, whoa, that's a long time. So the IRR piece takes into account that time piece. So the sooner you return my money, the higher. So we're looking at 20 IRR and about 8 to 10 cash on cash return each year, so that we can make sure we pay our preferred returns. The cap rates DSCR, we're looking at a bare minimum of 1.2, a very bare minimum. Lenders are looking at 1.25 to 1.4. So that's just making sure we can cover the loan. Cap rate markets we're generally looking at, given right now, at least like around a 6 cap is the markets we're looking at. There's a lot of people who've built trophy assets now that are looking to exit. And so we're seeing the 4. I see Travis grinning ear to ear on that piece. So we're generally looking at 6 cap markets. But really, if it doesn't cash flow, if it doesn't meet our investor returns, it's a no for us. And then everything else subsequent we're checking. So that's kind of what we're looking for. That's just primarily our bread and butter, but by no means are we saying, are we perfect? Other people do things that are phenomenal, but that's just what our bread and butter is.
Awesome. Hey guys, just a quick tip. If you are not understanding something, because I know some of you are newbies, just type it in the chat box and don't feel weird about it. We can totally address every single question.
Yeah.
So for some of you, and me personally, also when I just started, it was definitely challenging to understand all the terminology.
It's a lot to unpack. Like this is like a college course. I feel like of just like, even when you know a lot, you just go in the room and you're like, I don't know anything every single day, and that's the hardest part, is just building those momentums.
Right.
How do you look for good properties? How do you decide when to jump in or out? So when looking at properties, I'll actually share my screen. So there's just a couple things we do to make sure like we're understanding of an area. So Nico, I showed you this tool quite a bit. I think Travis as well. Let me share my screen. So, and I'll share this too with everyone. So it's called GeoMap. Of course, it doesn't load. So this is like whenever we get a deal, we don't look at anything. We're looking at year built more. Like we're looking for 1980s and newer, just because we've had old assets, and they're just the plumbing is a pain. But we're just this is like the first thing we looked. So so this tool, what it does is we look at the median household tracked income. If it'll work. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
If it'll. All right. Well, maybe it'll work on some. But I sent the link in the chat. But essentially, what it does is, it's not working on my end. But the broker will send you a deal, and you can see the median income, and that's like our first indicator of where it is. And you can pick the surrounding areas. So even though you've not been in that area, you can follow the money and see where the estimated median tracked income will be. So it is it's a really good tool on where to go in and figure out. But to get out, once we hit our exit and strategy number on where we're exiting to hit our targeted returns, that's when we have a fiduciary responsibility to our investors. We're just making sure, hey, we executed the business plan. This is when we're selling. Just because we hit that number, once you go on that point, past that point, you're gambling. So we're not in gambling even. So we have a fiduciary. We told our investors we're exiting at this number. We hit that number and we're out. So I hope that answers your question on that piece. And then Travis, with all the craziness going on, have you stopped paying LPs? So yes. So we actually, cash is king in these scenarios. So I called all 100 of our investors and let them know, hey, given everything going on, we want to make sure we have as much cash as possible. And some of our properties already have like 85% of our rents collected, but we just don't know. Like April is supposed to be the doomsday month. Now it's May. It could be June. We don't know what we don't know. So in these positions, we want to be as liquid as possible. We did hit our PPP loan, so we got that through. But Travis, to your point, we just don't know what we don't know. So I personally called all 100 investors. Even on Fridays, I have a Zoom call from 2 to 4 of just kind of an open office hours. I'm like, hey guys, I'm here. Answer any questions you have, to see any reports you want to talk about, whatever you want to go through. I truly believe in transparent peace of mind investing. That's like the one piece that I'm really hitting on, and just making sure that our investors not only understand, but they can ask me questions on why. So does that answer your question, Travis? You got to mute yourself first.
Yeah. The reason I asked the question is because I had quite a few investors lined up prior to COVID-19. Now I have none. Zero.
Yep.
And it's understandable. So
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, other syndicators and guys in the space a lot of them have stopped paying LP distributions.
Yep.
And the questions I've been getting have been, well, if I invest, am I going to get a distribution? And in this current market, I can't say yes.
Well, I mean, there's stuff happens. Like, I don't think anyone could forecast in their underwriting that, 2020 Q1, this black swine of Corona. So that's why it's never a guarantee. I mean, it's a preferred, and we have it accumulating so that, hey, if it doesn't happen now, we're going to pay it out. And it's like pretty much an IOU to our investors, but it's just making sure, it's no guarantees. There are risks. There's black swan, like rent control happens. You can't
Right.
predict the future. And I think too, for investors too, I think we had about 45 to 50% of the people in our last deal was self-directed IRA money. So now going into your next deal, people who haven't pulled their money and started that vehicle, they're definitely not going to want to pull their money out now. So it's
Yeah.
just thinking of your, your capital investment and where you're thinking, hey, what do I do? How do I get through? What does the capital look like? And it's making sure, where does it come from? So, everyone's looking for a guarantee, but it's pitching the piece of, hey, there is no guarantee. However, look at the tax implications, the cost segregation, that depreciation. You're showing those paper losses, but getting cash flow. Obviously, you can't predict everything, but it's just being you could say leave your money in the stock market, even though I believe in the stock market as a whole, but it's just that free fall. We all had a free fall. We still have an asset when it's all said and done.
Okay.
Hey, Travis, is this that deal that you were working on previously?
Well, this one, I had another one, a smaller one lined up. And the larger one in Kansas City, we pushed that the close all the way back to June now, just because no one's banging on the seller's door to pay them $7 million for their property. So he's working with us.
Yeah. Right. But, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, Travis, I have an interesting deal I got to talk to you after, because it's an interesting opportunity. But it's similar to your deal in the layout and stuff, but in a different market. But Mercy has a question: is how do you underwrite differently after the pandemic so it'll make sense? Do you increase rents 2%, etc.? So I've been underwriting deals the same at first, and a lot of these deals don't make sense. So that's but to the rent increases, I think 3% following that consumer price index is going to be. You could do 2, you could do 3. I know people doing 0 year 1 because it's just renew in advance. But the biggest thing I think is that finance piece, nailing that down, making sure because I've seen some people do 80% LTV, loan to value, on the property. But I think all the loan to values have gotten pushed back 5%. So if you're originally going to get 75, I'd underwrite it to 70. And it all depends on your markets. And also with that, it's how much reserves you have built up. So I would lean closer to 12 months principal and interest at a minimum. And then once you're trying to finance the next deal, that's when you really hone in. But just making sure how much reserves. I think going forward, those will be 6 to 12 or 3% will be fine. But anything more than that should be in the realm. Is that any other follow up with that, Mercy? Or are you good? All right. So Barbara asks, how do you pick locations? So we're looking, Barbara, in our locations, we're looking for macro markets where it is growth. We're looking for diverse job sectors and employers. We're really not looking for, there's some markets that are just outside a major city, but there's only one employer and it's a really small population. So we're looking for at least 100,000 people, around a 2% year over year population growth, strong employers, constant growth. The biggest thing is growth, and education has been a huge piece. Now, I think I've always talked about job sectors. 08, 09 with the crash was bad. So you don't want to be, in the travel and just in the travel. Look at Florida, a lot of travel, a lot of entertainment. So now I think we're even peeling back, not necessarily away from manufacturing, but we're a little more hesitant. Our most recent acquisition in Lexington was a lot of higher end retail and stuff. But right now, Lexington has very low corona cases. So, and that one has been one of our best performing properties. So we're just looking for the population growth, strong jobs, diverse job sectors. And then from there, looking at that sub-market, we're looking at that median tract income to be at least 35,000 in that tool I shared. And then from there, we're looking for 1980. It's kind of, we call it the Rand funnel of market, sub-market, property financials. So then once you get to the property, it's 1980s build generally. We'll look at 70s, but we're a lot more hesitant to make sure because that's when your plumbing's bad, the roofs are bad, and those plumbings are something you don't see. But the copper piping, a funny story. The first week we took over the property, we had a budget meeting with the property manager, and we've talked to her and we knew she was responsive, and she just no-showed the meeting. 2 hours later, she calls us frantically. Hey, the copper piping burst and was flooding my office, and I was emptying out garbage bins every 10 minutes. So that plumbing stuff that you can't see is real. So, and when you see those 70s products, be very cognizant of what type of plumbing it is, because it'll be a headache, a pain, and just making sure you are aware of it. So when you think of the 70s, it's not a go away, but just be very careful when you're looking at it.
I'm just going to piggyback for a second on that. Hey, Barbara, if you are personally looking for yourself, and if that question was kind of geared towards yourself also, how do you pick a location? It depends also for you personally, maybe where you know and where it's close to you, if it is a market that could be profitable for you. But if not, then you're going to have to look elsewhere. Like what I did, I'm looking down in Florida, which is a good growth market, but I chose that specific area because of the fact that I can travel down there because my wife.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Because I was thinking why, I'm not familiar with the Kentucky area, but I am familiar with some parts of Florida. So I was wondering, but what he just said, I think it was Mike, I think what he said was very helpful. It really narrowed it down. I understood it. And now what you're saying, and I remember now. So that's very helpful where you can go. And I was thinking like a vacation area. Is that why? So that was helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a lifestyle too. So like, with our group, is there good markets in Dallas, Texas? Absolutely. But with our vertical integrated property management team, we can't just pick them up and go to Texas. So there's a layer of ease of travel for you as well when you're getting started. And I mean, it's not a good reason. It's a good reason to get out, go explore the world, and then just kind of find the next spot. So there's a lot of people who are like, oh, I know I want to live there in so many years. So, it's up to you, and it's a lifestyle piece.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So this is a good time to look for properties given the state of the economy of COVID-19, or is it best to wait until the economy gets better? I don't think sitting on the sideline piece is, I don't think ever the answer, because you always got to be in the broker's mind. So if anything, I think it's the best time to learn and just constantly calling brokers. We're calling brokers because now it was hard to get a hold of them. Now they're calling us going, hey, we got a deal. It's off market. They're remembering the people who are active now when they have those private listings. The last 3 months, I think the people who have been doing, I know Mercy, you guys have been doing deals. It was super hard to get on the brokers on the phone. Now they're itching, trying to be like, oh, Mercy, we got this deal. And they're like, it's not really a deal. We're like, come on, Mercy. It's going to be like it's pivoted a lot in 3 to 4 weeks. So you always want to be playing offense and learning and connecting with brokers. So if anything, I don't believe in kind of sitting on the sidelines. Always play offense, whether it's your education, taking that more serious. I've been reading more than I ever have. I'm averaging like a book a week. So just always be learning something and picking up a new skill, connecting with more people. People are at home. Last thing they want to do is sit and work. Just talk to them. They're happy to answer the phone now more than ever. And brokers too are, I mean, with the sellers, I think the off-market deal stopped because they're like, what am I going to do with my money next? But at the same time, the brokers are still frantically calling deals as well. So it's just a weird holding pattern. So I'd always recommend to kind of just keep learning, growing, and attacking. Wait, sorry, I just saw these messages, so sorry I let you into the party late. So Barbara, what will markets look like? Many foreclosures after the COVID crisis. What are LP distributions? So right now, there's just a lot of news on forbearance for the multifamily. But the thing with the forbearance thing, Barbara, is you can't evict. There's no late fees. There's just a lot of rules with it. And there's just a lot of people of, hey, you couldn't pay this. They say it doesn't ding your credit, but there's got to, us as operators, this is like the absolute Hail Mary piece, like absolute last case, worst possible option, we'll do it. But at the same time, we just, everyone I've connected with operator-wise, is not, so I don't think, the poorly managed groups will be in trouble, but I don't think they'll necessarily foreclosure on the bigger, like the 20 or so, but maybe the smaller ones they might. But even then, I think people who are interested to sell are pressing harder now. They might not get their numbers, but I think it's just a piece of, I don't think they'll foreclosure, but the mismanaged properties will come to light in the next 3 to 6 months because no cash flow. Management companies will just get blasted on social media. So I think in the next 3 to 6 months, you'll see a swing in information of like what's going on. And then LP distributions are the limited partner distributions. So the general partners are the owners, and then the limited partners are the silent partners who have invested in on the deal. Generally, there's a preferred return of 6 to 8%, depending on the groups, maybe even 10, depending, not much, but I'd say 6 to 8%, depending on the deal. And so that's the annualized return. So with our group and our last deals, it's an 8% preferred return accumulating. So even though we're not paying it now, we're saying, hey, we'll pay it out in a later quarter distribution. So.
Hey, Mike, do you know, or does anybody happen to know that the statistic of how many foreclosures there were for the 2008, 2009? It's something ridiculous, like a 0.0% for multifamily.
I want to say it was 0.1 or 3%, like that range, less than 1%.
Yeah, so I mean, so multifamily is, has been known to be able to ride through recessions and come out fairly unscathed. And also to your point, Barbara, there's different ways to get into the multifamily space. I mean, you can buy, a 20-unit building on your own, or you can partner with somebody and buy with a friend, or you can get in like what Mike is saying as a limited partner, where you're not really doing much but providing some money and getting a return that he's talking about, the 6 to 8%, and that Travis was referring to, where you're getting a distribution. Travis might have been referring to monthly distributions. Other people, can give quarterly distributions or yearly distributions, but people prefer the monthly typically. And I don't know what you were talking about, Travis, because quarterly might be a better bet at this point, or even just holding off at all for the syndicators for now.
Cool. So Mike, question of, when doing a syndication, if you don't hit the press, does the money get paid later to make up the press getting paid with an additional interest on that money? So it's accumulated. So it depends. I'm going to say it depends on the operating agreement. There's some people who say, hey, we hit the pref or we did it. Great. Like it all depends. So the keywords you're looking for, accumulating, is the keyword. So if you don't hit it that month or that quarter, it accumulates in the background. So for our deals, if we don't hit it, we're promising it's accumulating in the background so that we'll pay that amount, the pref for that quarter plus carryover from the previous ones. So it's not necessarily interest because it's non-compounding. I think that's another keyword. So accumulating and compounding are the two buzzwords when you're searching our operating agreement. So ours are accumulating, non-compounding, but everyone has different ones. So it's a long document between the operating agreement and subscription agreement, but read through it all. And if you have questions, ask. I read all mine for our groups, and it was a crazy weekend. Let's put it that way. But you got to know your numbers and your documents, and because that operating agreement's the Bible on how the deal's going to work, what gets separated, the management fees, everything. So read it, and those are the kind of the two key the words is the compounding and accumulating. So James's question of, being an investor that has yet to close on a property, raising capital has been a stumbling block. Is there a particular investor group or any avenue that you're aware of that a small company can go to with potential investment opportunities to evaluate and possibly partner with? So James, to your question, I mean, it's hard to get deals. I mean, to be quite honest, we're dealing with external, investors around the world are coming to the U.S. to invest. So it's a hard time. What I would do is add value to an existing group, so that way you can see it and join. I just think there's a ton of opportunity out there to partner with people. When I first got started, I was seeing, I was helping my mentor with underwriting. I didn't want to be the underwriting guy because I was just hammered for 5 years of CPA and Excel. And I was like, I got to change my whole identity. And I was like, you got to just go stick to what you're competent with and run with it. But I would just add value to an existing group to help them, because then it just speeds your learning curve exponentially. So, we haven't done a deal in a while, and that's okay, because I'd rather a bad deal. Buying a bad deal is worse than buying no deal at all. So, but yeah, just keep adding value, talking to people. LinkedIn's a huge group to just meet and connect. So just keep putting yourself out there and good things will happen.
Right. And also, I mean, look, if you have a really good deal, I'm sure it'll be easier than to find investors than a deal that is just okay. But if you find something that is a slam dunk, a home run, just share with everybody here, everybody that and I guarantee you'll have no problem raising the capital for it.
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, absolutely, James. So next question is, do you have any recommendations for starting out? Do you have some sort of cheat sheet on resources? Is anyone recording this meeting? I am recording the meeting. So I'm recording the meeting. Cheat sheet, there is no cheat. I mean, you could do the podcast, Wheelbarrow Profits, Best Ever, but to be honest, I stopped listening to the podcast about a year ago, just because you get that analysis by paralysis of just going through hearing the same things and not taking action. So I would just read. Joe Fairless has a great book. Jake and Gino have two phenomenal books. But between those two, I think that's ready, set, go on what to get you caught up to speed, and just constantly networking and doing things like this and connecting with people who know more. Always try to be the dumbest person in the room to always learn. So you're always just stepping up. And eventually you get to a point when you get there and you go, this makes sense. I found a deal. And like I said, it's a team sport. So by any means, can you do it all? And no one expects you to do it all, because it'll just take forever, ton of headaches, ton of stress. And you just got to network with great people like Nico and everyone here, of just constantly networking and leveling up. So,
yeah, I highly recommend education. I mean, but regardless, you're going to have to educate yourself throughout the entire process. Even if you're years into it, you're still going to be educating yourself. So, Vitaly, I would highly recommend, starting with maybe that Joe Fairless book that Mike is talking about, the Best Ever Real Estate Apartment Syndication book, I believe it is.
Yeah.
I can send you that also if you want after this, and that really would jumpstart you right away. And it's got a little bit of a cheat sheet in there. They give you some vocabulary at the end.
By no means in this is and I think everyone can say it's a lot, and it'll always be a lot, and you're always learning every single day. But that's the fun of it. Of no one knows everything and goes, oh yeah, this is that, or even the people who are scoffed and knew everything. Could they underwrite Corona happening in 2020? So it's just it's such a and it's a very welcoming group in the real estate realm of just figuring out stuff like this. So just constantly network, because I think Ray Dalio's book, Two Principles, it's not a real estate book, but how to run a business, how to the idea of meritocracy piece. It's a long read, because you're always reflecting of imagining what your organization will look like and what it does. But I would highly recommend that one as well. Bobby's question: can you talk the cost of due diligence and how much it costs and how to fund it, especially if you're starting out without having any personal capital? So for that question, Bobby, it sounds like, to be honest, in multifamily too, is you want to have the capital first before you have the deal, because the SEC, there's a lot of people who are the capital raisers, and you want to have, this is the one time where you want to have the money before the deal, because you have to have at least a pre-existing substantive relationship with that person before you go out and send your deal out. So, you see the people on Instagram, I check out this deal, unless it's a 506Cs and CAT, it's okay. But when you're starting off, it's more expensive to do the 506C. So it's all people like and trust are going to be in that offering. So just continue to network with investors. pretty much for the closing costs and everything, we're assuming like 2 to 3% of the purchase price. But generally, whoever you can have people float that money to you on the front end, and they'll be general partners with it. But to be honest, I wouldn't get in on a deal if you didn't have any capital. I would kind of be looking to partner and find the deal, and you can still be on the general partner with it. But if you're starting off, just keep partnering with people and learning. Just talk to investors who want to be on it, because there's people who are like, I want to start, I'll find the deal, but I need floating cash to get the due diligence and the earnest money. So it's, it's a hefty investment. And the last thing you want to do is just go into a deal and go, oh, never mind, this deal doesn't work. And then that person's on the hook for the due diligence costs plus the earnest money. It can get hairy really quickly. So just keep, partnering and getting with people in your group so that you can take that down.
Yeah, try to really see what you're best at, Bobby, and see what kind of value you can bring and add to people. Because if you're not bringing any capital to the deal, you're going to have to bring something. And a lot of people join these like fix and flips and these like zero money down stuff. And it does happen in multifamily, of course, but you're going to want to start with something, especially, or at least some type of value that you're providing somebody who is offering up the capital for. So I'm sorry, Bobby, I think you were going to say something. No? Okay. Yeah, just figure out what you're best at and how you can provide the most value to somebody.
Yep. Next one, Joseph, when you underwrite a deal later to purchase, would you give credit for the uncollected or lowered rent during the COVID period, like when you calculate gross rental income? When you mean credit, are you saying like lower the price, or you can unmute yourself?
Okay, so basically, I was wondering, let's say when you calculate the gross rental income, obviously if there was an uncollected rental, that will go down, right? So if you have lowered rental income, if I want to use it as a leverage to deal with the seller saying, look, your property is not generating enough income, or would you give like credit as if it was collected as a regular rental? And then,
oh, okay. Yeah, so we're buying more on actuals now more than ever. So right. Because that's on your leverage piece of you got to collect on those. So it's what's getting collected is what the bank's going to look at. So I wouldn't pay more for that to let them, so underwrite it to a T of what they have of, hey, here's your gross potential for people for the new. You have your gross potential rent of how much the market is saying I can make on this property. Then you have what it's called loss to lease of how much, the difference between you're charging and what the market says you could charge. That's the first kind of decrease. Then you have your collections. That's when you have your effective income to really show how much you could be getting. So Yosa's question is, hey, in our markets, they've been saying, hey, the market's been so hot, you don't have to worry about it as much. But with this going on, I think it says two things. The management group is not running it well, or that sub-market is getting absolutely hammered. So just making sure, you're taking both into consideration, but I would never give the seller, the sellers have been, had a good wave. So I think they don't need any more credit than they already have right now. But just go off actuals. So what are some examples of adding value? So when I first got started, I was just underwriting deals for free. I know there's people who are offering like money to underwrite, but I was doing things for free. Will Coleman in our group, he was secret shopping the properties to make sure for an operator to make sure that property management companies were doing a good job. So just anything you can offer of time, whether it be the marketing, whether it be preparing documents for investors for memorandums or webinars, or helping them get on stuff like this. I think these are always like cool ways to get, no one's perfect. There's only 24 hours in a day. We can only do so much. So anything you can do, whether it be marketing, underwriting, making a deal webinar, helping them with packets, connecting them with someone who has this, would be a good fit. There's just like countless ways that you can add value. So even though you might not have the knowledge, you might have the time, or if you don't have you can have the money, or you can have the connections to help their business grow. So those are, people are trying to only grow their business. So just whether it be enter new markets or connect them with brokers, or, we've had people stalk LinkedIn just to like find the brokers in an area and make a list, or even calling them for them. So there's countless ways to add value to any group.
Mike, can I add to that from
Yeah.
the perspective of value add property? Are you guys still looking at value add properties? And
Yeah.
if so, what type of value add?
Yeah, so I think our biggest bread and butter in this, and has been mismanagement. So in our last deal in Lexington, we're doing our due diligence with me and Jake are going through the lease audit, and the leasing agent's phone is ringing. We're like, why didn't she not answer? Me and Jake look at each other like, why isn't she answering the phone? So Jake just goes, hey, why aren't you answering the phone? She goes, oh, that person's mean. I don't answer for mean people. This is the leasing agent. Like consistently, just like, we're like, literally leasing at our properties, we have a document that says how many people inquired on the property and how many applied. And if our property isn't 95% occupied, we're expecting a 30% conversion. So people got to get in the door. So that was like a huge strike. Then at the same property, literally an hour later, we're like, hey, we told the maintenance, hey, that bathroom sink's leaking. So instead of fixing it, they just mopped it up. And an hour later, it leaked again. They mopped it up. And so it's just like a lot of these it's a little things, like even if you call it like other properties, when you're like checking to see how their customer service is, you can call them and their property manager goes, oh, rent, and you're like, how much is a 2-bedroom apartment? Oh, $800 or whatever it is. And they go, okay, thanks, bye. A good property management company will go, oh, what's your name? When are you moving? What do you do? What's your email? Get all this information so that they can follow up with you. So you'll call and there'll be people who are like, oh, you're looking for a 2-bedroom? That's $600. Get no information and on to the next call. And it's just so those bad management property managers exist. And so I think that's always finding a good property management company to work with and always grow and keep them honest with budgets and making sure they don't go over budget. No one's perfect. And I think property management is, if you get really good property management, it saves a lot of headaches, but you always have to manage them.
Yeah, great point, man. So during the current environment, if you're looking for a value add property, the easiest and cheapest would be to get rid of a crappy property management team.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Because then you're not pumping money into the place to make it look better. So that's great. I like that.
And bad property management it's not all the same. They can overspend, they can steal, like they don't answer, they don't have systems. So you just got to know what you look for, and you got to really make sure you're managing them to a T. So it's not easy, but it's just, crazy stuff happens for a reason. So you just got to always be able to manage them. So when you're starting looking at your groups, understanding what the key performance indicators they have, what does their reporting rhythms look like. I was on a call today with a colleague, and literally he goes, it's hard to give them a budget and have them make it. And I go, it's really easy. They just don't want the guidepost to how to tell them your job, because then they know if they go over budget, you're going to be calling. So in these business environments, no one likes to be the accountable, but at the same time, you need to keep them accountable. So it's a burden, but it's one thing you got to always do. Every year we're doing budgets. I was leading the charge on that with our 20 properties, sitting through the 20 budget meetings, but I knew it was worth it. And literally month 2, we found a property manager at one of the properties who spent 3x on flooring. That came up on the property management meeting of, hey, why was that 3x? So just really understanding the guidelines and just how to manage them is so key to your success.
Excellent. All right. Hey, I think we can wrap it up, but I'm getting a lot of questions from just friends and family about whether or not they, it's kind of, I guess, just unknown right now, whether or not people would be able to finance and speaking to you, because you speak to Will a lot, I was considering maybe just reaching out to him to see if he can answer a lot of these questions that I'm getting as far as, what criteria, people are looking for to get financing? Is financing still happening? Is it going to open up soon? Is it restricted right now? Or, so those kind of questions I think will be beneficial for people on this call and other friends and family that I have asking.
Yeah, so I think the biggest things are anything that you had any leverage you had, bump it back 5%. Lending is happening, but at a price of your reserves. So I think people know that you have to have more liquidity on it. But I think if you're offering preferred returns, that cost of capital is huge. And we had it on Bill Ham on our podcast. He's like, you have the financing cost, plus you have this extra equity you have to raise. And so it's just a huge cost. So it is happening, but it comes at a price. So anywhere from 6 to 12 months, I think, has been the reserve. I'm not as fluent with it with Will. That's why I have partners. And so I think it just depends on the loan size and how, what it is. But I would say if I gun to my head, had to underwrite, put back your leverage 5%. The interest rates, even though everyone said on the news it's been going down, they've been pretty flat. So just making sure, you're, I think 4 to 4.5, depending, this is like the larger assets, I think that range. And then having a year's worth of reserves for principal, interest, and I would throw taxes just to be conservative. So that's gun to my head. I would put it in there. But to be honest, don't waste your time. Like, underwrite it like it was pre-corona. And even then, a lot of the deals still don't make sense. So save your time and headache and trying to figure it all out and just underwrite it like normal. And it probably won't work out. And then from there, just see how it'll work.
Awesome.
Gwave had a question on where are you setting rent growth now? Gwave, we've been underwriting in the 3% just to see, and most of the deals still don't work there. But we've tried 0, 1, and 2. We stress test all of our deals to see if we don't have any rent growth, can we still meet the debt service? So that's like our biggest thing of, can we still cash flow positive, cover our debt service to make sure that we can cover. So that's been like the biggest stress test. And then, but right now I still think after this, still assume the 3, but stress test it 0, 1, 2%, 3%, because I know a lot of operators are just getting renewals flat. With our property management group, we've actually had 90 days out that we've been getting them. So we're focusing on July's rental group. So we're thankful for that piece, but that's kind of what I would be looking at.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, a lot of people are talking about this whole COVID-19 and how bad it's affecting the economy and the rents maybe right now and growth right now. But we also have to understand that a lot of us are holding these investments for 5, 7, 10 plus years even, and this is going to change absolutely. So if you can buy the property right now at this point, and even factor in maybe 0% rent growth for the first year, I guarantee. I mean, you're going to be off and running.
And to Travis's point, when you're talking to your investors and they're like, "What about that distribution?" You're like, "But we still have this asset. So even though this quarter might not work, however, we still have this. People still need to live somewhere. Apartments aren't going away. So that's what I'd kick back to. So that'd be a huge piece that I'd highly recommend of like, hey, it's not like it's like we're closing up shop forever. It's didn't miss the mark this quarter. We're doing our best, but with black swans like these, there's nothing you can predict on it. And then with the federal rate cut will help the real estate in the future. So even though the rates got cut, Fannie and Freddie kept their rates pretty flat or even increased their spread. So it's, the federal rate can do what they want, but it's just the Fannie and Freddie, what they do. So I think there's a lot of news, and even the brokers are like, well, interest rates are down. We're like, no, they stayed the same, if not higher than what we were underwriting at. So, that's where you get with like a mortgage broker like Will Coleman of Rand Capital. And he, anytime you're kind of close to a deal, but I think, generally the rate cuts will help so that there's just more transaction. I think right when this was about to happen and rates lowered a little bit before this got as severe as it did, they flooded with refinances. So literally, we talk to mortgage brokers, and they're working all the time, round the clock, of just like refinance piece. So
It's almost done.
So that's been the biggest piece. Anything else, guys?
All right. Hey, all right, guys. Well, so I want to say thank you to everybody for joining, and hopefully we could do it again like this and have the same people, more people. Invite your friends, your family. If you have other questions, please reach out to me. I can give you my email or my cell phone or whatever. Reach out to Mike if you want. Also, I'm sure he's available too, or just message with me from the meetup.com. And you know, during this crazy time, we have to remember that a lot of things, a lot of the negativity, you know, and the fear around us can consume us sometimes, but we have to understand that we're going to get through this just like we've always done. And yes, the world is a little bit different now, and it might be a little bit different forever or for a little while, but we're all growing and learning new things like this platform right now. I mean, this is an opportunity that came to us that I wouldn't have had in the past, you know. So I really appreciate this time for things like this. And I think that, look, you know, keeping your head up and keeping a positive mental attitude will help us through this also. Just knowing that multifamily real estate in general is going to be a great investment vehicle for the future and for time to come. And even now, you know, so don't stop looking, don't stop learning. Now is the time to continue to grow and better yourself. Keep positive, guys.
Yeah, and I think like the biggest positive is, you know, this was a New York meetup, and now we got people all over the country, you know, California, Texas, like. So thank you guys, you know, for having me on and like connecting. So I put my email and the website to our investing portal. So if you guys have any questions, reach out anytime. You know, Nico texts, calls, emails, so he knows I'm always going to answer. So if you guys need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. And more importantly, I hope everyone stays safe during these times. And like I said, anyone needs anything, hit me up. Happy to answer.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.
All right. See you guys.
Yeah,
Have a good one.
thank you, Nick and Mike.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Bye,
guys.
Vitaly. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks,
take it
Mike.
easy, guys.
Thanks, Nico. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
This was great. Thank you.
And the recording, right? You guys are gonna post the recording as well?
Yep. I'll send out the recording to Nico once it loads.
All right. Again, very informative. Very informative. A lot to think about.
A lot.
Perfect.
Yeah, it was good. A lot to think about. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, take it easy, Barbara. Take it easy, guys. Have a good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.